Hi guys, it's Patty from Patty's Crafty Spot, and I'm here today to show you how I make my keychains. So I showed you a bunch the other day that I currently have listed on Etsy, and I decided why not show you how I make them. So most of these supplies here I got either at a craft store or various shops on TikTok. So for me to tell you exactly where I got what is going to be challenging. So anyway, that's just where I got those from. So anyway, let me show you how I'm going to make it. So I went ahead and got started and already kind of designed out what I wanted to make. And I'll just explain to you like how I came up with what I did. So as far as the fancy beads, so I'm going to use this really pretty black moon one. And it's got some blue butterflies on it. So this is where I'm kind of picking up the blue that I kind of spread throughout. And it's kind of close. It's not exactly the blue, but it's kind of close to the blue that is. So I thought it would be kind of pretty to throw in some color with it. And then I also have this heart bead right here. So usually when I make these, I go with like a larger fancy bead and then a smaller fancy bead, just kind of to balance it out a little bit. And what I would do is, so when I'm making the keychains, I'm using a bead board, and I go from 7 inches to 7 inches because that's how they hang. So let me grab one. So for example, like this one here, this is one that I did, and it would start at 7 and 7. And I like to go ahead and put this kind of around like the 5-inch mark. I just don't want to mess up my thing. And then this one here, I'm going to go ahead and put over here. This one should hang a little lower, because what I don't want is the beads, the fancy beads, to like this. So this one here I have up a little higher. I actually might just put that one higher to start with. And then I have this bead here because I don't want them like clanging together. So I kind of keep them off a little bit. So actually, let's move those down, and I'm going to put this one up here. I'll put the blue between it. So then, whoops. Move my beads up a little bit. So generally what I do is I'll put the 2 bigger beads where I want them, and then I go down through and decide whereabouts I want to put another bigger bead. So I like to put another bigger bead right at the 0 and add that right there, kind of to balance it out a little bit. So again, on this guy here, I have a bigger bead at the bottom, like that. And then I just go ahead and alternate different types of colors and see what kind of looks good on the board. I'll try to match up things, like on the 3-inch mark, I have the white pearl, and then down on the 2, I have a bigger blue. And I just kind of do that just to kind of get it centered first. And then I fill in all with the smaller beads just to see what I like. And right now I think I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and use some wire. Unfortunately, I do not know the gauge of this. It didn't come with it when I had ordered it. And I ordered this one from a TikTok shop, so it's not like I can go back and look at my invoice to see what size it is. It is a thinner wire. So, and to measure it out, I just like to just kind of line it up, making sure I have a little extra on the top, on each side, so I can string my rings. So that looks good to me. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is grab a couple of crimp beads. So my crimp beads on there. And then I'm gonna add this one. This happens to be a closed jump ring. So I'm gonna put it on and then curl it over. And I'm just gonna slide my crimp beads so I just slid my wire through my crimp bead like that. And I'm just gonna pull them down, making sure I want to leave a little bit of play right here. I don't want it super tight because I don't want to worry about it kind of getting too tight in there. So once I have them where I want, I can go ahead and crimp them. And once you crimp them, make sure that they are good and crimped. They're not going to slide back down your wire. And then you just string it. So start off by stringing it. And I like to always do a couple little beads on each end, the tiny ones here, just because it looks nicer, and then I'll match the other side. So usually when I do the top part, I will match both sides. So I'll start off with a couple of smaller ones, go to a little bit bigger, and then a little bigger after that, and I match that on each side just so it matches up pretty. And you have this little extra piece that's sticking out right here. You can see it. You're going to want to make sure that your beads go over that piece of wire from where you folded it over. And then you just keep putting them all on. And now when you're going ahead and doing the fancy beads, if there's something that makes them kind of directional, what I do is hold up my thing, and I know my heart, I want to make sure it's going to be like in this way. So I'm going to actually thread this through the top part. So I'm threading it basically upside down, and then when it hangs upright, it's going to hang up like that. And I will be listing this one on Etsy. So by the time you see this video, I'm actually going to have it listed before I post the video. So if you're interested in this one, it will be up there. If you don't see it, then that means it's sold. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this up there before I make the video. Oops. This one has a hole. It's not pushed through. And of course I'm on camera, so it's giving me a hard time about finding the holes on the smaller ones. Normally I just whip right through them. All right, and this is the center one at the bottom. All right, now on these fancy beads, the ones that I get from TikTok, because it's hard to find the hole, they always put like a little pearl in where the hole is so you can find it easier. So pull that out. And same thing, so I know that I need to string this one up from the bottom. There's some glue on it sometimes that holds it up from going through. All right, so then once I get the last one on, I always double check to see where I'm going to line up, and that one's going to line up pretty good right there. So it was a good idea that I did move that heart up a little, because I would have been too close to the bottom. So at least now it looks pretty further up. All right, so there's that. So the only thing I'm going to do is make sure my wire didn't come out, and that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 more crimp beads on. And get one of my closed jump rings. Make sure my beads are down. And I'm going to thread this through here. And again, I don't want to have too much slack at this one, but I also want enough where it's not going to like be too tight and break. So once I get it to where I like it, that looks good. And I'm going to crimp them. Oops. And those aren't going anywhere. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread my extra wire down through a couple of the beads. And then I'm going to cut it. Just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to grab a ring. We'll go with black for this one. And then I can just go ahead, string it on. And then we have a very pretty keychain. So now sometimes I also like to do is go ahead and add a double. So for example, I like to do the doubles on it. Let's see if I got one here with a double. So sometimes I like to add a second one to it just to kind of make it pretty, a little more fancier. So when I do that, I usually do, so to make the first one, the long one, I do 7 inches. To make the shorter one, I come down and do it at the 5.5 inches. And because I have like this kind of bigger bead here, I pulled out another one, and that's going to match. So I'm going to put that one at the bottom, so then it kind of mimics this one a little bit. And all I'm going to do is go through basically and just copy this one up into the 5.5. So let me do that first and I'll show you. Alright, so I went ahead and mimicked what I had on the bottom of this one for the most part. You can see it right there. And I did go ahead and cut my wire about the same size. It's actually a little longer than it should be. But let's go ahead and add our crimp beads. So 2 crimp beads. And I'm adding it on a new closed ring. And pushing them down. Closing them on there. Let's see, make sure they're not going to, whoops, that one's going to come right off, so that one needs to be a little tighter. Okay. And now I'm just going to string them on. And the same thing again, I want to make sure, because the wire where I fold it over, I'm going to make sure my beads go, the wire goes in there. So the wire's not sticking out. It looks like my video is keeping good timing, so I don't think I have to restart. Does that one not have a hole? Like, and then the two little ones here. And you can see I did cut a lot of extra wire. So that looks good. It's tucked in. So 2 crimp beads. And then my jump ring. And that looks good. So I'm going to crimp them. And they look good and solid. And I'm going to just thread this down through a couple beads again. Cut it. And then there's our little one. So then we can come over here and add it. So I'm going to take that side off. And there we go. Look at how pretty that is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how I make my keychains. And if you are interested in this one, I will leave a link down below to my Etsy shop so you can check it out. Again, if it's not there, that means it has sold already. Alrighty, until next time, guys, happy crafting. Bye.